If I could give somebody just one piece of advice that was coming across the story of Monster, and only one piece of advice, that would be, don't sleep on this one. And I only say that because I did for a long, long time. At least 10 years ago, I saw this, I think it was on Netflix, and I read the synopsis and everything, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. You know, doctor, surgeon, murder, mystery, drama. And I thought, okay, well, I might watch that at some point. And I keep scrolling, and I'm like, ooh, notebook that kills people. And next thing you know, you're 15 episodes deep into that. Long story short, I had the opportunity to watch this in anime form, and I didn't. And so that turned out to be a blessing and a curse because I could have experienced this 10 years ago. Secondly, I didn't, which means I get to experience it now and share it with all of you. So let's not waste any time here. First things first, as always, I'm going to say thank you to my patrons, and let's just get right on into this story. We open the story with Dr. Tenma, and he is in surgery saving an opera singer. And we see right off the bat that he is just amazing. He's the best of the best this hospital has to offer, bar none. And on his way out of surgery, we get to see an old woman crying because her husband died because he got a surgeon who wasn't quite as good and wasn't able to save her husband. There's even a little boy there asking where dad is and why dad's not back or something, just to really kind of hammer home just how sad of a moment this is. I mean, it could be viewed as a little heavy-handed, but damn if it isn't effective. We also actually learned that was supposed to be Tenma's surgery, but because it was just an old man and the opera singer was a much higher profile case, they gave the high profile case to Tenma because Tenma's the best, knowing that the high profile case is going to look better for the hospital than just saving some random old man will. We also get to see where exactly Tenma's located in the political structure of the hospital. He's the chief surgeon. He's also in the running for chief of surgery. He's also dating the director's daughter. And he's also a foreigner. This takes place in Germany, and he's a Japanese immigrant. I don't know if that's necessarily relevant or what impact that will ultimately have on the story, if any. I just felt like it was important to know. Also, he has this little surgeon buddy who constantly likes to point out just how well placed he is in the political structure of the hospital. And I think at this point in the story, it's pretty much lost on Tenma just how good his placement is. Also, he's being completely used by the director. The director is having him write papers. The director's then taking credit for the papers. The director's having him do strategic surgeries. He's then having those put in the paper just to make the hospital look better, to elevate the hospital's reputation. At this point, Tenma's really a pawn of this man, and he doesn't quite understand that every step of the way he's just being used. Now, at this point, the old woman's going to pull him aside and literally scream at him for letting her husband die because she's aware of the fact that her husband was actually supposed to be his surgery when he left the assignment to go somewhere else, which in turn was the reason why her husband died. And she's going to blame him for it, which isn't Tenma's fault. He's just going to take it so personally because he's such a good person and such a moral person, almost to a fault, maybe to a fault. But it's ultimately going to upset him so much that he's going to go seek comfort in his fiancée. And he's going to go to her, really upset about this situation, and look to her for support. At which point she's basically just like, didn't you know poor people deserve to die? I'm paraphrasing. That's not the exact words she uses, but that's basically what she says to him. You know, at this point, as the reader, you just want to be like, Tenma, get out. This bitch is bad news. Anyway, 2 children are rushed into the hospital. One is a little girl who appears to be traumatized, and the other one's a little boy with a bullet in his head. They've been rushed there because their parents were both shot and killed, and the boy was shot in the head, and the bullet's still in there. So now Tenma's going to prep the boy for surgery because he's going to go save this little kid. Right then, as he's in the OR with the boy, the mayor of the town is rushed into the hospital and he needs surgery, at which point the director then tells Tenma, get out of the OR with the boy, go save that mayor now. And Tenma, having just been through everything that he's been through, is going to stubbornly refuse and continue to work on the boy and save the boy, because in his mind, he's going to save this child. The doctor that he's going to hand him off to isn't capable of a surgery this delicate, and he'll be damned if he's going to save some high-profile person and let a kid die. And the consequences of this decision hit him fast. He is immediately demoted, and his fiancée immediately leaves him because he no longer holds the social status that she requires in a mate to make them appealing to her as a partner. This is surprising to him, and he's crushed, and he's devastated, and he's very upset by it. And I get it. It's understandable. Your girl just left you, but at the same time, you just want to be like, dude, you're better off without this one. That bitch was crazy. The universe just did you a favor. Take my word for it. But he's going to go back to the hospital, and he's going to sit in the one comforting place he has, which is the little boy's room, the little boy that he just saved. And he's going to just completely vent. And in his venting, he's going to say, I just wish that they were all dead. He also just kind of talks his feelings through with the unconscious boy. And then he gets up and he leaves feeling a little bit better. At which point the boy opens his eyes. He wasn't unconscious at all. He heard everything. Now, when he goes back to the hospital employees are putting the boy and girl together in a room, which he hasn't authorized because he doesn't feel they're ready to see each other yet. They're both too traumatized. And he tries to put a stop to it, at which point he's informed that that's not his case anymore. His piece of shit boss has had him removed from the case and had some other doctor put on the case just to punish Tenma. And just to add insult to injury, he also sees his fiancée going out with another doctor. I mean, it's okay because we've already established that this chick is no good, but he's not over it yet, so give him time. Next thing we know, Tenma's being woken up by the police because the director and the two head doctors have both been found dead and the children are missing from the hospital. Which brings us to the BKA man. And if this guy isn't the most intimidating, I got my eye on you, Inspector, I've ever seen in my life, I don't know what is. Also, he's got this weird twitch in his finger that I think is supposed to look like he's typing. I'm not entirely sure, but it's effectively creepy, that's for sure. When you combine that with his facial expression that he constantly has, I mean, this dude's like, is there an equivalent for resting face with men? Because this guy's definitely got it. Anyway, the hospital gets a new director who immediately promotes Tenma to chief of surgery because he is the best surgeon. Which, of course, makes his ex immediately come back up to him like,
hey, Tenma, you remember me, right? Why don't we just start all over,
And to which he says, bitch, please. Or at least that's what I like to think he said. The important part is he walks away. Now, at this point, we're going to flash forward 9 years in the story. And everything's just seemingly normal for Tenma. He's practicing surgeries as normal. I mean, his life's going pretty good at this point. When suddenly a guy comes in who's been hit by a car. And that guy's going to ultimately end up being under investigation from the BKA man, who's going to show up and ask this guy a bunch of questions. And all the while just keep giving Tenma that creepy side eye that he likes to give people. And this guy's being investigated because he might be connected to a spree of murders that's happening right now. And those are a series of couples without children are all being murdered. Then while Tenma's in the room, the guy's going to wake up and just say, he's coming. And when Tenma asks him who, he just says, the monster. And once again, the writing falls on this real delicate line of almost heavy-handed, but goddamn if it doesn't work so well. But now that the patient's awake, the BKA man is going to come in and he's going to interrogate him. And he's going to accuse him of being the lockpick for the killer. And the entire time that he's doing this, every chance that he gets, he's just going to pick at the doctor. And this is because he's still convinced that he has something to do with the murders from 9 years ago. He just can't prove it yet, and he's trying to make him slip up. Ultimately, the patient's going to break out of the hospital before he's supposed to leave. Tenma's going to notice. Tenma's going to run out and go chasing him because he's going to bring him back to the hospital or something. But they're going to end up in a parking garage where we get the big reveal. And that is that the monster is the little boy all grown up. This little boy that Tenma saved has now grown up to be the monster. And to be honest, it was like literally the only thing that I knew going into this was that a doctor saves a kid. The kid grows up to be the main antagonist of the story, and now he has to wrestle with, if he hadn't saved this boy, then none of this would be happening. If he just let the boy die, then... So I knew that much going in. I didn't realize that the reveal would come this quickly. Like, we're like halfway through this, and I'm like, oh, how's this gonna go for 9 more books? I don't know. But if the quality of the writing and the tension and the suspense and the, oh my God, if this book is anything to go on, it'll be just fine. He'll find a way to sustain this, and I think we'll be doing okay. Actually, to be totally 100% honest, I knew he saved somebody's life, and that person became the main antagonist. I didn't know it was actually a child. That was actually news once I got to like chapter 2 and I realized he was saving a little boy's life, and I'm like, is this how this is gonna go? Like, for real? And yeah, that's where this is going. Also, at this point, I want to say that there is a real power in the ability to convey information with just images. Movies use it effectively, anime uses it effectively, and manga definitely uses it effectively, because sometimes that's all you get is an image. Yes, you get all the writing and the words, but when you have a book of pictures, sometimes the most important thing you have is the picture. And in this one, it's done right. Oh my God. But anyway, now we're going to go directly from here to Tenma attempting to explain the boy killer to the BKA man. And not only does the doctor appear to have motives in some of this stuff, but it also effectively just makes him look like a crazy person. But all in all, he's going to leave this meeting with the BKA man feeling like he's ultimately achieved absolutely nothing, and it ends on an image of him in the rain looking broken. I mean, utterly just broken by what has just happened to him. So far, he has done nothing but just try his best to be a good man, and it just hasn't worked for him. Now we switch to a young girl, and it is absolutely amazing how big of a difference the turn of a page can make in this, because suddenly it literally feels like we're reading a different manga. The mood, the tone, the feel, everything is different now. Everything feels happy all of the sudden. This girl's bright, she's energetic, she's likable. Not that Tenma wasn't. She's good at school, she's the best in her class at Aikido. It's just, you just feel good reading it, where you didn't feel good reading Tenma's story. She's just so genuinely happy that it makes you happy to read it. She just can't happen to remember anything before she was 10. And you're not so happy reading this anymore, are you? And suddenly she starts getting emails from somebody that says, I'll come get you soon. And it just, oh my God, it's not, for like 5 pages, this was the happiest manga I've read ever. And now it's just, I can't even express how to feel right now. But now we flash back to Tenma, and he's now obsessively on the case of trying to find Jonah, when he comes across an old man who actually knew Jonah as a kid. And apparently Jonah even told this old man about Tenma. And go figure, the old man is actually an old Nazi. And him and Jonah connected over his old Nazi stories about what he used to do to people in the war. And Jonah just loved it. He says that Jonah was interested in terror and how people responded on the brink of the abyss. And this dude is creepy as fuck. And he says that the boy's foster parents are dead, and so are several other couples across Germany. I mean, which, if you hadn't put it together from earlier, these are all of the different foster parents that he had throughout the years. He's systematically going back through and killing all of them. And he tells Tenma that he planned to go back for his sister on her 20th birthday. Speaking of the sister, we get to go back and we get to see her and her parents, and the fact that her parents, her adopted parents, are preparing to tell her that she is adopted and she's not actually theirs. When she sees Jonah walking around in a crowd and she recognizes him, but she can't figure out why or put her finger on where, and the whole experience is so overwhelming to her that she ultimately passes out. Now that Tenma's got it all figured out, it turns into a race against time for him to find the girl before it's too late, which ends up leading him to the Heidelberg Post. And he's going to go in there and try and convince the guy to help him or give him information, which just makes him look crazier than ever. And for some reason, the guy actually does help him and brings up all these old books. And they end up going through them and they locate the information that they need and they find her and they find out that her birthday is today. And I just want to point out just how good the pacing of this manga is and the way that everything's intercut, especially the characters that we're following and the way all the scenes, one leads into the other, and just the way that it's intercut and the pacing at which it's intercut is phenomenal. It is flawless. I was so impressed going through this. It sucks you in and it just keeps you moving and it won't let you stop. Okay, so here we go. He meets the family and they tell him where the girl is and he goes rushing off to find her, leaving the parents behind. We then see her and she's on a veranda of some kind and we see a guy trimming vines. And he's just like, "You're supposed to wait here." And once again, I want to point out just how important the power of imagery is and just how much mood and tension can be conveyed with what he chooses to draw and when he chooses to draw it. Like, take, for example, the close-up of the shears, or just the way the guy's face looks. He doesn't have to draw it, but because he draws it, adds so much tension to the scene, and just adds so, I don't know how to explain it. It adds so much. It just, oh, it's so good. But just then Tenma shows up in a panic, and the guy attacks him, because if she doesn't stay, he doesn't get paid. Anyway, they're ultimately going to get away and they're going to rush back to the adopted parents' house, at which point they find out that she was lured away just long enough for him to sneak into the house and kill her parents. Also, the image of her parents dead on the floor brings everything rushing back. Suddenly she can remember, she remembers her other parents, she remembers her brother, she remembers it all. At which point, we learn that the first time that the parents were shot and killed, he killed his parents, and then she, in an attempt to stop Jonah, shot Jonah in the head. She's the one who shot her brother, trying to kill him because of everything that he had done. And Tenma took the boy into the operating room and saved his life. And now she's going to blame Tenma for that. Now at this point, cops are going to show up to the scene and they're going to collect Tenma and the girl and they're going to put them in a car, but they're going to start driving the wrong direction. So Tenma's going to assume that the cops aren't really cops, jump out of the car, jump off of a bridge, and go into hiding for a little bit because he's afraid that these were not actually cops. These were just people that were working with Jonah. And at this point, she's ultimately going to end up screaming at Tenma over saving her brother before she ultimately runs away. The BKA man's going to go find the other cops, which actually turn out to be real cops, and when he talks to them, he's going to end up finding Tenma's tie. Now, at this point, with no other leads to speak of, and the girl having run away, Tenma's basically just going to go back to work at the hospital. The inspector's then going to track his tie back to his ex-fiancée. He's going to ask her about it, at which point she's going to say she doesn't recognize it. Now she's going to go back to Tenma looking all sad and stuff, and she's going to be like, "You want to start over again?" And he's going to say, "No, bitch." And she's going to say, "You know, the inspector's got your tie. I covered for you, so you should come be my boyfriend again, or else I'll tell him you killed everybody." Because she's just the worst person in the fucking world. That's why. And not to be manipulated, he says, "Get the fuck out of here." Actually, he doesn't. He just turns his back on her and walks away. But good for you, Tenma. You just keep walking. You just walk away from that chick. Have I mentioned how bad of a person this chick is? Anyway, he walks away and she does exactly that. She goes running straight to the BKA man, tells him all this bullcrap that he wants to hear, tells him all this bull about Tenma's a murderer and he murdered all these people. Every single person she can think to connect to Tenma, she connects to Tenma. Anyway, Tenma leaves the hospital just as the BKA man is showing up, and now Tenma's on the run. And at this point, the book's going to wrap up with the BKA man bringing in an old soldier for interrogation because the old soldier has been found to have harbored Tenma. He brought Tenma in, he gave him a gun, taught him how to use the gun, and whipped him into shape, kind of trained him up a bit at Tenma's request. And then Tenma ultimately left to go on his mission by himself. And he just needed a gun and some training to do it. And I mean, oh my God, this was good. For a story that had basically no action, the forward momentum that was generated by the story alone was amazing. I literally read this whole book in one sitting. I have been sleeping on this story for at least 10 years, and I shouldn't have. I'm so upset right now that I have not experienced this before. It's crazy. The definition of a page turner. I don't even, Anyway, this one's going straight for a 9. I can't give it anything less. It was amazing. It was the definition of a 9. And I look forward to volume 2 whenever I get around to it in a few weeks. Oh my God. Anyway, as always, the link for my Discord is in the description below. The link for my Patreon is in the description below. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.